I went to India, and I discovered, talking to rickshaw drivers, talking to people who were, railroad office inspectors, owners, that this was something that wasn't talked about openly, but it's something that's understood.
And well known.
Yeah, and well known. So intensely against child abuse. I mean, in your case, you were 21 years old, but you said you were very innocent and open. And there's many, many cases of much younger children.
But my experience with Sathya Sai Baba had always been wonderful. And it was later when I found out tragically what was happening, not just to young adults, but then finally I heard about legal minors, boys 15, 16, 17. And that's when I and a number of others felt we have to speak out.
Right.
And so I left the movement. I had actually been one of the Bhajan leaders and so forth in San Francisco, and they made me president up there when I returned from India.
He had talked to everyone else. He did come back to the door leading into the private interview room, and he said, "You, sir, come please." So I was, of course, ecstatic. He talked to me about some spiritual instructions that I needed to have, which alone would take at least this lifetime to try to master, I would think, and if hopefully just this lifetime. But anyway, he also asked me to raise my shirt, and I did, and he materialized some vibhuti, and he rubbed it on my stomach. And I said, "Baba, you know, I've been diagnosed with malignancy in my body." And he said, yes, I know." And then I said, "Well, am I all right now?" And he said, yes. And then he said, "I worried too much about health and wealth, and not to worry because he would bless." And after he finished talking to me, he did like this. And that was for the big hug. So he gave me, I got to hug him, we had a big hug. The best hug I've ever had.
17th February 2003, 17th February 2003. It was one day before that year's Shivratri. Shivratri that year was 18th February. I was going for morning darshan. Swami had asked me to come for morning darshan, so I was sitting in the morning darshan, 17th February. Swami called me. Another one of those life-changing moments. A moment which I haven't yet understood. Swami called me inside the interview room. There were two other people. There was one Mr. Ajit Popat, and there was a politician, one lady, Mrs. Geeta Reddy. Swami spoke to all three of us, and then Swami said, "Come inside." Then Swami took me to the personal interview room. There is a small room inside of the interview room, the personal interview room, and Swami took me there. That was the first time I was alone with Swami. Just Swami and me, nobody else. And then Swami shut the drapes, the curtain, and hugged me. And I hugged Swami. Then obviously I broke down. And surprisingly, Swami also broke down. And then Swami said, "I have been waiting for so long for this chance." Yeah, you heard me right. Swami said, "I have been waiting for so long for this chance." And I was like, "Oh, aren't those my lines?" But such are the ways of Swami, mysteries we will not understand.
The documentary A Man Called God tells the story of a family trapped in a cult. And one of the men behind the film is actor Christophe St. John, who stars in CBS's The Young and the Restless. And we love having you here this morning, Christophe. And this has been some compelling stuff, this documentary you're working on. You were 14 years old. How did your family wind up in India?
Listen, that was 34 years ago. We were Hindu for quite some time even before that. But my stepmom found out about this man, Sathya Sai Baba. She had been, coming out of the 60s and the 70s, you had people that were really yearning and searching for God. And so this particular individual, Sai Baba, who's recognized by 50 million followers globally. He was a global phenomenon even back then. He had people like the Beatles going to see him, Prince Charles, Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, the king of Nepal. So he was well received by a lot of people, and my parents got caught up in it, and I did too. And so we went to India. We stayed there for about 4 months and got caught in this cult.
You had mentioned that the experience for your family was just horrifying.
Yeah, well, of course it was. I mean, after we realized just the danger, what we were involved with, the corruption, the deception, this man has total mind manipulation over his followers. And again, having that many followers, you can understand when you talk about people like Jim Jones, David Koresh, Marshall Applewhite, people who have taken advantage of other people, you know, the weak-minded, the spiritually weak-minded, the people who are searching for something, and they find and they latch on to a man like this. You know, and he doesn't stand for all Hindus. I want to be perfectly clear. He embraces all religions because he wants to bring people into his fold. And that's what he did with us, you know. My parents were very much searching for the spiritual way out.
How do you think people get caught up in cults?
Again, to reiterate, mind control. It's very easy to sell your soul to something that you're unaware of what's really going on behind closed doors. I mean, you have Jim Jones, who in Guyana, he took control of what, 900, almost 1,000 people, and he seduced them, literally seduced them to drink cyanide-laced Kool-Aid.
Sure.
You know, that's all about manipulation and people who are searching.
Is this man still alive, and where is he today?
Sai Baba died 3 years ago as of this past week. But his organization still flourishes in the south of India. His organization is worth $9 billion. And we talk about corruption from the Prime Minister of India, not the current one, and the President of India, again, not the current one, but people who are in high hierarchy, upper echelon positions in governments that have followed this man, that look the other way when it comes to the corruption. This man he's a pedophile.
I have a quick question for you before we wrap up here is, why did it take 34 years to see this documentary?
Well, we were big fans of Sai Baba back in 1980 and had been for some years. And when we shot this footage, my dad had the wherewithal to shoot this documentary, but we were all big fans. We followed him and we didn't know what to do with the footage once I found out what was going on, you know, in the inner belly of the beast. And so it sat there for many, many years in cold storage, and finally my father, after cutting together a couple of different disjointed Fred Fellini versions, gave me the footage and I put it together, and this is what we're doing now. We won at the Beverly Hills Film Festival last night. We won Best Overall Documentary and Best Film, which is an amazing thing. We won 2 awards.
Well, you know him from The Young and the Restless, Christophe St. John. Now you know him from A Man Called God. You can find out more information about this wonderful film on our website, cbsla.com.
It is a scary story, and I'd like to promote it by saying, expose the truth and warn the people. And this is a project that's 34 years in the making. This was shot in 1980, my father being a blaxploitation icon and star back in the late 60s, early 70s. He starred in Shaft with Richard Roundtree. He got his own deal together with a film called Top of the Heap. And he decided, and my stepmom, that they wanted to do a documentary on a man that we had been following. We were Hindu for quite some time, and this man who lives in the south of India, who calls himself an avatar, who calls himself a god, was sitting in a little tiny village, population 3,000. And so we got on a plane, jumped the plane, got to Purified, which is the village, and sat at this man's feet. And while we're there, I'm 14 years old, and I start investigating, I start researching, I'm looking at different things going, that's not right, this is not right, what's going on? Meanwhile, I'm just trying to get back to the States to go to Mickey D's and get back to 9th grade. And my parents, who were so caught up, they weren't seeing it, they weren't recognizing it. And so my job as a young man was to inform them about subjects that I was looking at very closely. Corruption, deception, money laundering, murder, things that were happening behind the curtain, sort of like Wizard of Oz. And so ultimately, we had 20 hours of footage that we shot on 16 millimeter. And we came back to the States and we put it away in a vault. And it sat there cold, you know, temperature control for many, many years. And finally, we got it out and we started cutting it. And this is what we have. We have a documentary that exposes what this particular man, and his name is Sai Baba, Sathya Sai Baba to be exact. Again, he calls himself an avatar. He calls himself the father of Jesus Christ. Yo, that's a huge claim, and something that we all have to take note of and look at, because cults are alive and well in this country. And it's up to us to go and investigate, research it, and then disseminate the information about why it's not good to be a part of it.
Tomorrow, part 2 of my discussion with Christoph St. John, and he discusses the horrifying personal abuse that he suffered in this cult. You don't want to miss that. That's tomorrow on News One Now. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to go to newsone.com for more stories and updates. You can also check me out at RolandSMartin.com or follow me on Twitter at RolandSMartin. Tonight is Scandal Night. And folks, here's part 2 of my interview with actor, producer Christoph St. John about an amazing documentary.
I don't know what to do. It just happens like that.
I have to go and kneel at the feet of Sai Baba.
In heaven there is security. God is not going to be there. God is in hell. God is in hell. God is in hell.
For the documentary, it's really about witnessing what this family, the St. John family, went through. There was desperation. There was ultimate betrayal. It affected me in ways that I was meditating 2 and 3 hours a day. I was singing holy songs, walking around an ashram, being a part of the culture. It's all about mind control, manipulation, bringing people to the point where they're brainwashed, where they are no longer in control of their own faculties. And once that happens to you, you're like a puppet for those that want to pull the strings, the marionette. And the puppet master was Sai Baba.
What was your relationship with him? Was it with your parents, or do you have personal interactions with him?
I did have personal interactions with him, and I did experience things that are part of the movie, that the documentary that are very revealing about.
He sexually molested you.
There was a molestation, yes, and I can't go into detail about it, but my parents were unaware of what was going on, and we did have private interviews all together as a family. Well, being a young man, it was hard at the time to really go through the feelings, emotions, and whatever history that I was feeling at that time. It was a very cathartic experience for me to come out of it many years later. What do they say? It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And so for the documentary, it's really about witnessing what this family, the St. John family, went through. There was desperation. There was ultimate betrayal. And finally, when we came out of it, we realized that we had been duped. Like Denzel said in Malcolm X, we were bamboozled. And at the end of the day, that is no longer my life. I've dealt with it, and I've moved on. And this documentary is cathartic proof of that.
One more question, not on this, but deals with soap operas.
Yeah.
They are a dying breed.
Right.
Yet, for some reason, Young and the Restless continues to be one of the dominant soap operas out there.
Yeah.
What do you think is the reason?
Soaps aren't necessarily dying. In fact, I see a resurgence. Just because all my kids went off and One Life to Live doesn't mean that we're going downhill.
Many Christoph.
Yes,
St. John, I appreciate it, man.
Thanks
for joining us on TV One News One Now.
Yeah, man.
All right.
I appreciate that.
Well, to my surprise, when Elia said okay and he started to tell the story, it was so much more than I knew anything about. And that, in fact, he had been sexually forced and abused by Sai Baba in almost every single interview he had ever been in.
What did you feel like as his mother and father listening to that?
It's like everything went white for me. I just, the being which I call Sai Baba, the living God that I had taken for years into my private heart, had been truly abusing my son for so long. I felt completely betrayed that I had actually led my son into this, telling my son to trust in this man completely. And Sai Baba, the Sai Baba, was a predator and a man who cared only for himself and for taking precious love from his devotees. And really, I can see now he really didn't care about me. He wanted my son.
He materialized a sacred ring for him.
I was overjoyed. And I had heard my mom often talk about, oh, I would love to get a ring from Sai Baba. I would love to get a ring from Sai Baba. So I thought it was just the best thing in the world that had happened to me. The fact that he had given me a ring, I was overjoyed.
Underpinning Sai Baba's claim to be a living God is an apparent ability to perform miracles. But for many devotees like young Elia Ram, Sai Baba's generosity came at a cost.
At the same time I was overjoyed, it was also a little bit of confusion, because that was the first interview in which he called me in personally.
He took you aside?
Took me aside and put the oil on his hands and told me to drop my pants and rub my genitalia with the oil, and pulled me close and started kissing me heavily on the mouth. And I was really taken back by it and not understanding what was going on.
I said, so tell me about, your interview. And he said, well, I'm not supposed to tell anybody. Baba told me not to tell anybody. And I looked at him and I said, did he make oil for you? And his eyes got kind of big and he said, how did you know? And I said, did he rub it on you? And he said, yeah. And he said, how did you know? And I said, because it happened to me.
To Elia's surprise, his father had had the same oiling experience when he first visited Sai Baba aged 18. The guru had told him it was a ritual healing process. Al accepted this, and when it happened to Elia, he saw nothing wrong.
In front of him and look into his eyes when we sang the song. It's called Oh Baba. Sai Baba.
Al, Marissa and Elia formed a singing group called Bhakti, which means Path of Love. Stars of the spiritual circuit, they were the perfect New Age family, the embodiment of the love-all, serve-all dream.
You set me free.
And we'd talk and tell stories in between what inspired this song, and Al would tell a story about Sai Baba, and really it was kind of a hit.
The family were proving to be quite a hit too. On their various visits to Purified, the Rams were being singled out for unprecedented attention from their guru.
This is a lot of the jewelry. These are all pure gold watches.
Yeah, pure gold with real diamonds. He said, oh, real gold, 100%, real diamonds. The next day, diamonds fall out, the gold starts flaking, and people are like, what's the deal with that? You must not be pure.
Baba was giving him money. I mean, I think he gave him several $1,000s. He gave him a watch and a ring. He gave all
couple
of us.
Of rings.
We all got rings and watches and
yeah,
earrings.
It was just like the trip to Disneyland with God. I mean, we were just really ecstatic with joy getting this attention and this limelight.
What Al and Marissa didn't know was that while he was showering their family with gifts and attention, Sai Baba was exacting a heavy price from their son.
Oral sex, he would try to get that to happen several times. He would perform it to me, and then, and then sometimes threaten to cut my penis off and hold it and be like, it's bad, I should cut it off. He would ask me all the time, why don't you want me? You don't want me? It was so far out to me to think that he was actually just wanting me to physically want him. I could pretty much stop convincing myself that any of this was spiritual when he lifted his robe and his dhoti up to his chest and showed me the whole bottom half of his body and told me to take my pants off. And then he tried to, I'm much taller than he is. He's like 5 feet tall, maybe. And I'm 6'6", and he tried to climb up onto me,
To rape you?
Yeah, that's what it felt like. I mean, he was, for a 70-year-old man, as erect as I think a 70-year-old man could get. I even saw semen come out of his penis one time. And that was when I was like, wow, this is a human being.
In spite of the growing abuse, Elia continued to play the dutiful son.
No, I think Swami's plan for me is, he said, we're all tools, and we just have to be available for Swami to use us at any time that he feels necessary. And so I just want to be ready. because I imagine that he's going to snatch me up and say, I need to use a screwdriver right about now and just use me, so I need to be there. And I'm doing what I can. I've even heard my mom say so many times, you know, oh, now is the golden time. We're getting attention. You know, Elijah, whatever Sai Baba is telling you to do it. Whatever you're doing it right, because God is paying attention to us.
And yet she had no idea how tragic her words actually were.
Right.
What really helped me was when I had some conversations with some other people who had the similar experiences. Because I felt that if they had experiences as intense or close to as intense as mine, I could talk to them about it more openly than I could talk to with my dad. So we had talked about it, and all of the people that I had talked about it were equally confused as I was. However, also equally brainwashed and allowing it to continue to take place. So I would say that finally I decided that I was not going to put myself in that position again, because life without Sai Baba was going to be a better life.
Da sønnen endelig fortalte forældrene, hvad der foregik, afbrød faren al kontakt med Sai Baba og stoppede som leder i den amerikanske del af bevægelsen.
And I could see the manipulation that had been done, the threats, the pressure, the intense responsibility to bring this boy along, to keep him around for 7 years as Baba's plaything.
Faren fortæller, at han klagede til organisationens øverste leder i USA.
What do you think now, looking at all these things that were so cherished by you?
Really, one word comes to my mind when I look at this box, and I would say that this is a box of bribes.
Yeah.
Rams certainly didn't understand. In despair, they contacted Isaac Tigert of the Hard Rock Cafe. He was sympathetic, but not very helpful.
His dad talked to me, and I said, look, I'm sorry if this happened to your family, to your son, whatever. Anyone would be sympathetic, anybody. I said, but it's not changing my feelings about Sai Baba. It just isn't.
So even if it was proven to you that Sai Baba was a paedophile and a serial sex abuser, you're saying it wouldn't change the fact that he is your guru?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He could go out and murder someone tomorrow. As I said, it's not going to change my evolution. It's not going to change the good things that have come out of my relationship down there.
Does that mean that some part of you believes there could be some truth to the rumours?
Oh, absolutely. I believe there is truth to the rumors.
You believe there is truth to the rumours?
Sure, there probably is.
At the ashram, God was retiring for the evening. As he went, I wondered what it would take to dent the faith. The allegations seem to have no effect, and perhaps it is asking too much for someone to abandon their God. For the followers of Sai Baba, it's just another test of their faith.
Mark Roach devoted 25 years of his life to Sai Baba. He first heard of him in 1969 and soon joined the local centre in California. The Guru's message was the big attraction.
The teachings themselves were very universal and adopted the attitude of embracing all other religions, so that it wasn't a matter of this religion opposed to that you had to leave whatever you were in to be associated with Sai Baba. It was something that just be a better Christian or a better Jew or a better whatever it is, rather than necessarily having to leave it. Mixed with the fact that the person who is the head of that is claiming to be God himself.
It's a special moment when God calls. And Mark couldn't believe his luck when he was summoned for a private interview. But he emerged shocked and confused. Just like the Ram, Sai Baba had oiled his genitals. 2 years later, Mark was called for an audience again.
He kept saying stuff like that, I'm giving you a great chance. Millions want to touch the feet. You know, I'm giving you a whole body. This is a great chance. This is a great chance. Then he went over to a different part of the room and pulled up his dhoti, which is an Indian garment kind of thing, and exposed himself and sort of indicated that I was supposed to put his penis in my mouth, which, feeling intimidated and confused and all that, I did. And although it didn't seem right to me, but it just seemed like what I was supposed to do.
Why would God want to put his penis in your mouth?
Got me?
One of the things that a lot of the abuse victims we've talked to have said is that Sai Baba does these genital oilings because it's part of Hinduism. Have you ever heard anything?
For one, it's nothing to do with, there's no Indian tradition to support the fact that, you know, worship of the linga includes also doing the blowjob, if that is what you are referring to. I don't think there's any basis for that whatsoever.
The odd, perverse, ironic, hypocritical thing of it is that he's the one that's doing the perverse things, but making us feel the guilt about it.
Yeah.
You know, given normal worldly standards, it's the kind of thing that he deserves to have his face pummeled to the ground for.
Yeah.
You know, and you see him above that, which is to your credit, and I don't know how the heck you had the courage to get through it all. It seems like you have.
I like to say that I'm over it, but I don't think that I'll ever be over it. A lot of decisions that I make are still, you know, weighted by experiences that I've been through, and a lot of them had to do with Sai Baba, you know what I mean? He's behind the door, you know, with his wrath, you know what I mean? There's time. Yeah.
Connie Larsson var gennem 21 år en tro disciple af Sai Baba. I Sverige har Connie Larsson i mange år drevet et hjem for misbrugere, og flere gange tog han patienter med til Indien, for at de skulle blive helbredt af Sai Baba. For tiden arbejder Connie Larsson i det sydlige Polen med at undervise personale inden for socialforsorgen og fængselsvæsenet. Førhen var han en af de 2 øverste chefer for den svenske Sai Baba-organisation. Det er han ikke mere.
Det var så här, när jag var 4 år gammal, fram till jag var 8, så blev jag utnyttjad av en pedofil, min pappas bästa vän och chef. Och han våldtog mig varje fredagkväll när löningen hade kommit och de skulle dricka alkohol och pappa somnat. Då våldtog han mig oralt inne på toaletten hemma hos oss. Och sen när jag kom till Sai Baba, som jag trodde var Gud och min räddning, så var jag inbjuden i det inre intervjurummet. Och det var där han liksom drog ner byxorna på mig och tog fram min penis och började smörja in den med olja och sen började runka mig, onanera. Och efter att han hade gjort det så ville han naturligtvis suga mig också. Och jag stod ju där som helt plakat och förstod liksom inte riktigt vad som hände då. Och vad han gjorde sen var att han ville att jag skulle suga honom. Så då drog han upp sin klänning så här. Och då stod han där med sin lilla penis som var ungefär så här stor då. Och trodde att jag skulle suga honom. Men det kunde inte jag. För jag kom ju att tänka på den här historien om våldtäkten med barn. Så det gick inte. Jag fick spykänslor. Och på det sättet så fick jag också Sai Baba att förstå att jag inte kunde det. Och då lät han mig vara. Men onanera mig, det vill han ju gärna.
Connie Larsson troede på Sai Baba som en gud og fandt sig i de seksuelle tilnærmelser. Han var en voksen mand på det tidspunkt. Han brød først med Sai Baba, da han flere år efter oplevede, hvordan Sai Baba behandlede en svensk familie.
Det var när vi i juni, den 6 juni 1999, så åkte vi ner en grupp från Göteborg ner till Sai Baba. Och då var det en pojke som finns med på passagerarlistan här. Han och hans mamma och hans bror och vi andra åkte ner och vi blev inbjudna till intervjurummet. Och i det inre intervjurummet så lockades den här pojken in under tiden hans mamma satt utanför. Och då hörde ju jag vad som skedde där inne utav sexuell karaktär. För jag har ju varit med om det där själv, där bakom skammens draperi som jag kallar det idag. Och där var det så ljudligt så jag skämdes liksom, det var för mycket. Och då hade Baba gått Och kudden som man har som stöd för ryggen hade fallit framåt. Och då passade jag på att ta den kudden, för jag satt precis vid sidan om så här. Och då tog jag den kudden och dunkade lite i den för att föra lite ljud, för det blev ju pinsamt. Och då när jag ska sätta tillbaka kudden så får jag till min stora förvåning se att i ryggslutet här, längst ner vid sätet, så ligger det guldklocka, guldhalsband och guldring och annat krimskrams som han sen, när pojken väl har gått ut därifrån, så kommer han ut nöjd och glad och mumsar. Och så kommer han ut och sen så sätter han sig och har fräckheten och går på mamman direkt som tittar på sin pojk och undrar vad som har hänt med honom och frågar mamman, vad vill du ha? Och sen har han fräckheten att fuska och göra en sån här falsk materialisation som jag med egna ögon såg när han tog med handen bakom ryggen. Och inte bara våldta pojken eller förföra pojken där inne, utan lura mamman och alla oss där ute att han kunde manifestera när allt hade legat bakom kudden. Och då liksom, då gick proppen i huvudet på mig, då tångsade det bara. Och då förstod jag ju liksom att jag är lurad själsligt, fysiskt, hela världen är lurade både själsligt och fysiskt.
Vad har hänt efter att du har stått fram som motståndare, Sai Baba?
Jag har blivit hotad att när jag åker till Polen så ska man skjuta mig. Och man har försökt en ny taktik nu från Sai-rörelsen, och det är att skicka ut meddelande om mig att jag skulle vara dömd pedofil. Man har liksom vänt på hela problematiken och sagt att det som Sai Baba gjort sig skyldig till pedofili, att det är jag som gör mig skyldig till, jag och de andra pojkarna som har vågat träda fram. Det är vi som är pedofiler. Och det har man skickat ut meddelande över till hela världen. Och det tror Sai Baba-anhängarna på.
Da sagen kom frem, forlod mange svenske tilhængere bevægelsen. De danske ledere derimod.
Grupptrycket i Purified, där jag oftast var de här 32 gångerna, var så enormt. Och allt var så organiserat från varje minut. Från klockan 3 på morgonen till klockan 9 på kvällen. Så man hade liksom ingen chans att komma undan. Allting var så hårt strukturerat. Det var bara liksom att svälja det hela. Och sen lurades vi ju. Vi visades ju Sai Babas guld och glitter och allt vad han hade gjort. Och de sa om döda som hade stått upp och lama som gick. Och det var ju Jesus. Det var ju, och så sa de att han var ju Jesus fader. Han hade ju sänt Jesus hit. Och när man såg honom så trodde man att det var så. Trycket var så stort. Tänk dig själv att sitta med 10 000 eller 100 000 människor eller 500 000 människor som det är ibland. Och alla bara sjunger hans lov. Det går inte. Det finns inte människor som kan stå emot det. Om man inte direkt har kommit dit för att titta misstänksam. Men det gjorde ju aldrig jag. Jag kom ju dit för att jag behövde en far. Och Sai Baba uppfyllde ju alla de kriterierna.
I Purified er sikkerheden omkring Sai Baba stor. I 1993 blev 4 unge mænd dræbt i hans bolig. De var trængt ind i selve ashrammen, bevæbnet med knive, men blev skudt af politiet.
En polis som arbetade på polisstationen i Purified på den tiden, han berättade för mig att pojkarna hade kommit dit och sagt åt Sai Baba att nu får det bli lite stopp på det här sexuella våldförandet på småbarn. Då låste Sai Baba in dem, han blev upprörd, låste in dem, gick och tryckte på alarmklockan till polisen. Polisen kom och de får tillsägelse av Sai Baba att ta hand om det här. Och de förhör pojkarna uppe i Sai Babas sovrum och vardagsrum i 4 timmar. Och sen anses det av polisen så pass farligt att släppa ut dem till folket som väntar utanför. Så polisen helt enkelt avrättar dem efter 4 timmars förhör.
Billedet her af en af de dræbte er fra nyhedsmagasinet India Today. Connie Larsen kan ikke vide, om politimandens version er korrekt, for hverken myndigheder eller Sai Baba selv har siden offentliggjort, hvad der præcis skete i ashrammen. DR Dokumentar ville gerne have interviewet Sai Baba selv, men fik ingen adgang til guruen. Han har kun én gang offentligt kommenteret anklagerne om sexmisbrug. Det skete forrige år i hans juletale, hvor han beskyldte modstanderne for at være købt og betalt til at bagvaske ham.
Sometimes I feel so stupid because it took me so long to finally come to my senses. But I guess the brain is like a powerful tool. If you got it thinking one thing, it's difficult to change the mind and finally wake up and realize what's happening.
Gigantic miracle happening in one day. We have other holy men like Sathya Sai Baba. Sathya Sai Baba is notoriously known all around the world now for the enormous cases of pedophile allegations coming out, starting from Sweden to everywhere. I mean, Western devotees' children were abused, and hundreds of cases were coming out. London Telegraph made a full-page Sunday story with at least 200 cases reported. India's national weekly India Today published a cover story. Pioneer newspaper made a first front-page story with the affidavits of people who later, when they become adults, speak about this thing. No inquiry, nothing, no investigation. Later, 4 young boys were killed brutally on point blank on their head there. It was a dispute between the boys involved in the pedophile. There is not even a first information report registered about that thing. It was in his bedroom. But we have been more concerned about his miracles before the pedophile cases coming.
Som kan berette om sexmisbrug. Politiet i både USA, Tyskland og Frankrig har fået anmeldelser fra tidligere disciple. Flere end 20 af anmeldelserne blev i marts indgivet til de indiske myndigheder. Domstolene i Indien har endnu ikke afgjort, hvordan de vil behandle anmeldelserne. En af anmelderne bor i Boston. Hans mor er glødende tilhænger af Sai Baba, og gennem 6 år var han det også.
In 1989, when I was 15 years old, I went to India for 3 weeks. And on that trip I had 4 interviews. And in the 3rd interview he actually asked me to untie my pants, and he forcefully pulled my pants down and with his bare hand grabbed my groin and rubbed some oil on the side of my scrotum. And I went again the following year, and on that trip when I was 16 years old, Sai Baba called me again for a private interview. At that point I was even actually more uncomfortable because it seemed like this had already taken place and there was no reason why it needed to take place again. But he asked me to take my pants down. I did, and he went ahead and produced a oily substance and rubbed it on the side of my scrotum.
Ifølge Jet Gayahan var han langt fra den eneste.
I've talked with students of Sai Baba's school and that have had sexual relationships with Sai Baba. And it's really common knowledge that several students stay with Sai Baba all night on an ongoing basis. And of course nobody talks about what takes place with these students with Sai Baba, but from the students I've talked to, clear that there are sexual relationships taking place. And in fact, one student I talked to directly was a person that was staying with Sai Baba. And from the conversation it was clear that it was very difficult for him to come forward with this information because he'd be rejected by his family and by his culture and by his people, unlike American students who have the support of their culture and society and family to come forward and talk about the fact that they've been mistreated by Sai Baba.
Tom Brook, the Inner Circle disciple. One night I'm walking the ashram and the unheard of happened. Some school kids in his inner circle ran me down and said, Swami wants to see you upstairs in his apartment. Well, he gives interviews in the ground floor of his Prashanti Nilayam temple. He lives in the upper part, or did then. And this is a big deal. You know, in many ways, these are signs and wonders. And, okay, I go inside, go up the coveted stairs into where he sleeps and lives. And his high priest was there, a guy named Kasturi and Roger Reddy and other insiders. I knew this was a rare privilege, and I just hung out. He was counting saris, and the next day he would help me give them away to women. He kind of, I guess, mocked Christ-like feedings of the thousands, giving stuff away. When I was on Australian radio the other day, the guy asked me, well, aren't they good things? Yeah. But I said, if you had a PR agent and you wanted to run for the White House or some high political office, they would have you to create a better sort of public persona, be Mr. Nice Guy. You would do outward virtuous acts, and that doesn't seem impossible by any means. And of course, he was doing that. He was fitting the whole bill of an avatar. He claimed to be an incarnation of God on the level of Krishna or Rama, the Kalki avatar. So I noticed a dark side, and I sort of filed it away, that there was some weird stuff going on. And I saw some of the disillusion of some of the disciples just breaking down. There were some nutcases that came out. Oh boy, that doesn't look good. I thought he was going to heal this guy of something, and they're shipping him off because he's going nuts. Life under him was hard. I was a vegetarian in South India for 2 years, and it was hard. I was very driven to take it all the way up to Nirvikalpa Samadhi, through him to go all the way up to enlightenment. But there was this dark side that kept reappearing, and I go into the chemistry of this in the book. What's happening with the people, the sort of bizarre things going on. If you're at a distance, you're okay. You're safe. You can project on him. If you're right under the radiation field, you start to really pick things up. I did. And one of them, of course, was an interview where he put his hand down there in my fly, and I thought, wow, strange. Strange for God, you know. Is he feeling passion here? He's breathing heavier. He's kind of rubbing my thing down there. Wow, that's kind of weird. That was the beginning of an approach. There are a number of them, but I never responded. And the typical rationalizing is, oh, he's purifying me. He's radiating down there in the sex chakra to get away the lust. You know, young guys feel lust, you know, and so he's doing that. He's purifying me of distraction so I can get enlightened. And then there's a part that says, no, I mean, this is a pedophile. This is very weird. And then reports started to go out of more activities. And I'm going to jump ahead. By the time Line Publishing in England did my book, a shorter version called Lord of the Air that was on sale in India, and this is a return trip, some of his top inner circle students, young guys at the academy, got a hold of me, sent a letter and saying, what you reported has happened to us, and a lot of us are going to leave him and we're going to expose him. We don't think he's God. We think something's really wrong. I've got another explanation I'm going to go into in a minute. When he so-called got enlightened as a kid, they thought a local demon, a Grama Shakti, had possessed him, and that's probably really what happened. Something like that. He got stung by a scorpion. A number of things happened that are part of an older occult formula of possession. And what I say is I think he was in a state of perfect possession. The darkness was eating away at my soul. And again, we're doing the short version. The full one's the book. And I ran across a book in a bookstore that, because I grew up in an atheistic family, I wasn't aware of this stuff, but it basically said, by biblical standards, he is one of the antichrists predicted on the world. That he claims to be God, working great signs and wonders, and he's doing it to mislead the elect, and that's Matthew 24:24. I thought, that's an interesting thought. I actually started to read the Bible. I was getting desperate. And the truth is, I had actually hurled the Bible open on a rock, and it came to Matthew 24:24. And then this book was dealing with a number of psychics and people who were really deceivers. I mean, one of them being Edgar Cayce, and suddenly a new thought entered my universe. And that is, wow, you know, well, I mean, you're not going to go to Grand Central Station in New York and say to some stranger, here, hold my wallet. I can trust you. And there's this naive thing in the spiritual realm that, oh, if it's spiritual, there can't be deception or bad people or antichrist or demons. Because it's spiritual, it's all good. But you know enough to know that if you get hustled in a train station, someone says, here, let me hold your passport and your wallet for a minute. Now, I'll go in here for a second. You're never going to see it again. And if that happens on a worldly level, it definitely happens on a spiritual level. And so this book that I read in the bookstore opened a new universe in mentioning biblical verses that talked about lying wonders and false messiahs and antichrist and all that. I thought, that's a new thought has entered my universe. Unbelievable. Well, a number of these things happen, and another one is one of our people, a guy named Sathya Das, was in the, we were all renting a house right near him in Whitefield, Bangalore area, South India, in sort of in a, what had been an English farm community, a pretty neat place to live, actually. And one of our people was down near the market where they sell mangoes and tea and that kind of stuff, and ran into an Anglo-Indian guy who had the sensual looks of a rock star. He had this sort of degenerate good looks, and we'd seen him before in line. We thought he was foreign, and no, he'd grown up there, he was local. And he said to Sathya Das, well, he basically wanted me to screw him, essentially. He took me in for a private interview, pulled down my pants. I think he's hermaphroditic because his organs were different. But wow. And this, when I heard that, I said to Sathya Das, well, I've never told you this, but he's taken me into private interviews and done the same thing. I never responded. Kind of in shock, really hoping it would end as quickly as possible. And this Indian guy said, well, I didn't give a rip. I, kind of responded to him. When I heard that, I said to Sathya Das, well, I've never told you this, but he's taken me into private interviews and done the same thing. I never responded. Kind of in shock, really hoping it would end as quickly as possible. And this Indian guy said, well, I didn't give a rip. I, kind of responded to him and somehow entered him in a weird kind of way. Could have been between his legs, I'm not sure. And it just hit me like a sledgehammer because I knew it was real. He had nothing to gain by telling us. He wasn't faking it. And he was pretty scared when he admitted it, but it's like he needed to tell the American insiders. And I was the top heavy. And so Sathya Das, who was one of the people renting what we call the Blake cabin at the time, came back and said, Joel, my universe just caved in. I've got to tell you about meeting this Anglo-Indian guy with rock star looks. And he said, Baba pulled him in for a private interview and tried to screw him, or have him screw him. And
Said en 1991 cumplía 18 años. Su caso forma parte de la primera demanda contra Sai Baba por abuso sexual que recibe la Corte Alta de la India.
In one occasion, he was playing so hard, and I had a note here in my hand that I had written several questions, and I was asking him, and not questions, some things I wanted to tell him about my family, about the situation in Iran, about my own problems. And I was telling him these things, and he was at the same time playing very fast with my penis. And after some time, he just did like this, and he turned around, blah, 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 made a full circle, come back, and said, put up your pants. And that was the end of the interview. I think that he is, he's definitely not a holy person. He is not an honest person. He is not a loving person. He is not... definitely, he's not God. I think he's a sociopath. It took me a couple of years to really come to terms and start to trust myself and my own thinking and say, yes, Sai Baba was a monster. Sai Baba was taking advantage of me. Sai Baba was cheating. Sai Baba was taking advantage of sexually. It took a very long time, but I finally did it, and I'm very glad that I did. And I feel free now. In a way, yes, he was my father and mother. That's what he says. He was my God. He was my everything. I looked up to him, even for drinking water. It was like, if he said no, I wouldn't drink it.
El iraní norteamericano Said Khorram Shagol es programador de Internet y vive en Los Ángeles. Entre 1991 y 1993 viajó 3 veces a la India y estuvo 7 veces a solas con Sai Baba.
In the first meeting, he asked me to undo my pants, and I pulled down my pants, and he basically circled his hand like that and created some oil. And he applied it between the areas in the front and the back, the penis and the anus. And he pushed up very hard. It was actually hurting. And he pushed up for about 15 seconds. And after that, he told me to, again, put my pants up. And after that, the private interview was finished. That was the first interview. Right now, I feel that was my introduction. That was the way he broke the ice.
Said tenía 18 años cuando Sai Baba le dio su primera entrevista privada.
Every interview, private interview after that, he asked me to undo my pants, put down my pants, and he would play with my penis. It was not anymore applying oil to the area between the penis and the anus. He would play with my penis.
Baba nunca le explicó cuál era el sentido de lo que estaba haciendo con él.
His initiation of me into the spiritual world, based on how they teach us, I thought that there is probably something into it. He did something for me, probably. Because they tell you, push away all the bad thoughts. That's what Sai Baba says. Push away all doubts, push away all the bad thoughts. So if you start doubting his actions, immediately push it away, because it's put into your mind that this is the way to spiritual life.
Yo no puedo creerle.
La universidad. Every interview after the first one, it was the same story. He would play with my penis. He once kissed me. He would breathe harder. In one interview, he asked me to, I was kneeling down, he was standing in front of me, and he took my hand and he brushed it against his clothes in the private area. And I was brushing it like this. I was not interested to turn it around. He was doing it like this. And he was making sexual noises. He was making the noises and, of course, breathing hard. And after that, he let my hand go and he said, that is God. Sai Baba has so many politicians that are protecting him. I know that based on experience. We have tried to do several things in India, and for example, we tried to go to the Supreme Court, and on the day that we had the case was supposed to be heard, suddenly there is a change in the, at the last moment there is a change in the judges. And who is judging? The best friend of a judge who is a follower of Sai Baba.
Una organización internacional llamada Línea de Vida hoy reúne casos de abusos de menores en Puttaparthi para añadir a ese expediente.
Yes, of course. We, the Lifeline group, the organized group of victims, we're taking the case all the way up to the Supreme Court in India. And we were guided there by the most skillful lawyers and prosecutors. They told us exactly how we should go all the way, and we managed to do that.
Diarios prestigiosos como el Daily Telegraph en Londres o el India Today en Nueva Delhi se hicieron amplio eco de estas acusaciones. Por último, el 15 de septiembre de 2000, la UNESCO retiró su patrocinio a una conferencia a celebrarse en Puttaparthi.
There's not only me, there's not only the golden boy, there's thousands of boys that has been molested by Sathya Sai Baba from Purified.
A fines de 1999, Sai Baba sufrió 2 ataques de corazón y se filtró que debió recibir tratamiento médico en Bangalore. Según él mismo, vivirá hasta el año 2022, es decir, todavía faltan 21 años para garantizar su lugar en la inmortalidad. Pero el estado de su salud no es alentador. Nadie se anima a prever qué sucederá en la organización si su profecía más conocida falla.
Well, if he dies, he will pay in other life.
En la era de Internet, impedir que estos testimonios circularan fue casi como tapar el cielo con las manos.
I feel right now that he was really trying to get some sort of stimulation.
En octubre de 1999, Sai Baba respondió: cualquiera que sea encontrado hablando de esa forma en la terraza debería ser echado de aquí inmediatamente, sea quien sea. Nunca volveré a llamar a entrevistas a ese tipo de gente. Solo los que observan silencio son buenos. El silencio fomenta la pureza. Por lo tanto, guarda silencio todo el tiempo.
I didn't talk to anybody about these things until I had left Sai Baba. I did say one time a story to other devotees that were my age about a boy that got this treatment. I didn't say it was me. And they all said, oh, we don't want to listen to these things. Don't ever mention that to him. Well, he didn't tell me why he was interviewing me one-on-one. He didn't give any specific reason. He did, however, in the interview say I had bad thoughts, I had bad desires, and supposedly he was trying to correct them, these bad things.
Said es programador, vive en Los Ángeles y administra un sitio en internet dedicado a exponer su verdad sobre Sai Baba.
I was kind of mystified. I was uncomfortable putting down my pants, definitely, and I didn't really like it too much, and I was uncomfortable. And after the meeting, I was kind of mystified. I was thinking, what was that about? He didn't say what it was.
Connie Larson vivía en Sri Lanka cuando en marzo de 1978 decidió viajar a las RAM de Sai Baba en Puttaparthi.
I was sitting there on the first row. I happened to come into the first row. And then suddenly Sai Baba was standing out on the temple terrace where he usually go out and look who is there. And then he was just looking at me, and suddenly he just went straight on to me and asked me, you have come now, he said. And I said, yes. And where do you come from? He asked. And I said, yes, I'm coming from Sweden, I said. No, you come from Sri Lanka, he said. And at that time I thought that, oh, he's all-knowing, he knows everything about me. And that was the first so-called trap that I fell in.
Connie Larson tenía 30 años y era dueño de una compañía constructora de $22 millones.
Baba put some attention towards me, and he asked me always, what are you doing on Sri Lanka? And I told him. And he said, it's not good. Do something else. And I said, what to do? And I was having the meaning of staying with him in Puttaparthi for life, not doing anything else, because if God was on earth, as they told us, of course I want to be where God is. I want to be a servant.
Larson regaló su empresa a un devoto de Baba en Sri Lanka, se instaló en el ashram e integró su círculo interno durante 21 años. Sai Baba le encomendó difundir su obra en todo el mundo.
Behind the curtain of shame, he asked me to take away my Indian pyjamas, my trousers, and let it down. And I was just so flabbergasted. I didn't know what to think. My God asked me to take away, and he saw my.
He realized you were shocked?
Yes, some sort of. And he said, don't worry, I'm just going to cure you, he said. And I asked for what? And then he said that your life force in the spine, your kundalini is in wrong place. And I mean, he was God telling me that I had some illness and he was going to change it. And then he manifested a little oil, so-called manifested oil. And then he smeared that in around my genitals. Just 10 minutes I was in with the others, and then he called me in, and now the pants was straight down very quickly. And now I could see, I didn't realize, but I saw, but I denied what I saw, that he was directly horny on me. And he asked me to take, and now there was no oil, he just went on my penis and started to masturbate it. And finally, by the interviews that went on, he explained though why I was that special boy that had to go through this. He said that I was one of his former disciples in an earlier incarnation, And as a pupil at that time, I didn't finish with him.
Did the Sai Baba just touch you, or did you have
No.
sexual intercourse like regular?
Of course. That was masturbation, oral sex. Behind the curtain, everything occurred. Ejaculation, everything was there, both from my side and from his side. God was God. God had the right to do whatever he wanted. That was my learning. When I came out from the interviews, you see, all the people were sitting, oh, Connie, what a wonderful thing. God has touched you some here and there. And everyone outside, everyone was looking upon me as the person, as the first, the chosen one. And I just moved into that role. That was so easy.
Larson fue nombrado coordinador espiritual de la organización y pronto se convirtió en uno de los devotos más populares de Europa, al punto que Hollywood estuvo por filmar la historia de su vida que iba a protagonizar Dustin Hoffman.
In 83 you said it stopped.
No, it stopped because I'm being too old. He's not interested in elderly boys. He wants young boys. He told me that I had to do the duty. The mission was over. Now I had to go out in the world and teach his fame, his love, to teach people things everywhere, he said.
Yo a Connie Larson no lo conozco. Yo conozco a miles de personas en todo el mundo que fueron.
Larson afirma que su fascinación le impedía pensar que el mismísimo Dios pudiera estar abusando de él. Baba dijo que lo estaba curando de un mal que había heredado de una vida anterior.
When the Sai Baba is performing sexually on you, he's telling you he's trying to cure you. Now, when you do oral sex to him, what is the justification?
No, I never did oral sex on him. He did oral sex on me. He wanted me to do oral sex on him. But I was a molested child when I was very young. From 4 years old to 8 years old, I was orally molested. So I myself was not able to perform that kind of sex on him. Fortunately, he was friendly enough to let me off the hook. And he made the things on me instead, but he wanted me to do other things with him, like masturbation and so on.
Larson, como otros ex devotos, asegura que algunos alumnos de las escuelas Sai son parte de una suerte de harem, a los que llama niños en forma.
I wasn't aware of that. There were other boys at the same time. I thought I was the only one, but he had other small young boys all the time.
Y estas acusaciones dicen que Sai Baba se abusa de sus estudiantes como si fueran ovejas mansas y infradotados. Y te repito, los estudiantes de Sai Baba sacan los primeros promedios en los exámenes de la India. Sai Baba es célibe, jamás ha tenido una mujer, y lo que dice sobre sexo es que debe imperar la moralidad. Dice, si vos querés tener un novio, casate, no vayas con un novio aquí, otro allá, otro allá. Entonces les dice a los jóvenes todo el tiempo, no anden noviando. Si les gusta una mujer...
Una joven sueco-finlandesa. Estaban por casarse, pero antes, Connie decide presentársela a su Dios.
Sai Baba asked the girl, do you want to marry that boy? And he asked me also, do you want to marry that girl? And I said, if it's your will. And then he said, but she is fire and you are butter. What will happen with the butter in the fire? And I said, oh, it will melt, Sai Baba, I said. And then he said, do you want to melt? And I said, of course not. And then he slapped the girl in the face and said, you stay away of this boy because he's married to me. And that was the end of the story. And then he divorced us.
Connie había fundado en Suecia un instituto para recuperar jóvenes de las drogas y la criminalidad. Comenzó a llevar pequeños grupos a la India para que conocieran a Sai Baba. Baba, dice, se fijó en un joven de 19 años.
He was called in all the time for private interviews. And finally I made my way to him, and because I was seeing that he was not happy. From each interview he came out more unhappy, and all the other groups said, oh, wonderful, wonderful. He was called the golden boy in Purified because Baba manifested so-called golden necklace, golden rings, golden watches, golden whatsoever, diamonds, rubies. He was all like a Christmas tree. He was overwhelmed by this golden things. And I thought, this is not right. Something is wrong here. Because the boy wasn't happy.
Connie, quien por entonces era leal a su Dios, encubría las actividades pederastas que ahora se le atribuyen a Sai Baba.
When he told the story about how Sai Baba molested him sexually, then I said, oh, don't think in that way. It must be divine. You must stick to what Baba say to you. You have to go all the way through.
Un día, la madre, él y otros devotos esperaban cerca del cuarto privado de Baba, y Connie dice que no se le ocurrió nada mejor que sentarse en su sillón.
The cushion has fell down. I was sitting on this side, and now I was hearing what was going on behind the curtain. I heard the sound, which I was knowing what kind of sound it was, the sexual sound. The other people in the open room couldn't, of course, interpret it. They wouldn't have imagined that things like that was going on. And I take up the cushion and bang it a little to put the attention towards me. And then when I putting the cushion back, there was something glimmering in the end of the chair. And then I pressed down the seat. And there was the golden necklace, there was the diamonds, there was the rings, there was everything lying there. And then I just was so shocked. I had seen Sai Baba cheat so many times before, but this was something else. This was a shame. It was a total realization of a fraud.
Sharon Purcell fue amiga íntima de Walter Cowan, un millonario muy conocido porque Sai Baba dijo que lo resucitó, contra la opinión de los médicos que lo atendieron, por el año 1971.
Oh no, Walter asked Baba if Shiva and Jesus were the same one, and Baba said no, all one, all one. And then he manifested this, probably pulled it out of the side of the chair, but he manifested this little blue amulet that had Jesus on it. And then he passed it around, and I was sitting next to him, and I put it in his hand, and then he just closed his hands over it and blew on it 3 times and opened it back up, and it was green and had Shiva on it. So I can't really explain that. But I just thought, you know, he manifested things. But everything that he manifested, my ex-husband saw him pull it out of the side of the chair.
Sharon Purcell y su marido Gary viajaban a la India con frecuencia e integraron uno de los grupos pioneros en el oeste de los Estados Unidos.
He told me when we went in 71 that I would have a son, and to name him Sathya, which I did, and so he goes by Satch. But in 1973 he was born, and so I mean he was right on that.
Zach es parte de la primera generación de niños occidentales nacidos en brazos de la fe Sai Baba.
Well, I think it really wasn't until 93 when my son was there and Baba put oil on the genitals of 3 of the guys, and my son just could not rationalize it, so he stopped believing. But I just kept thinking he was rechanneling their sexual energy into spiritual energy. I was so stupid.
La fe de Sharon se derrumbó cuando decidió hablar con Mark, un devoto que había dejado a Baba años.
And then I called my friend Mark, and I said, Mark, I said, I don't believe in him anymore anyway, so you tell me exactly what he did to you in 1972. And Mark told me that Baba put his penis in Mark's mouth and ejaculated.
No, yo supe que pasaban estas cosas, claro que supe. Sí, sí. Al principio con sorpresa, yo sé esto hace bastante tiempo. Digo, será, no será, y después yo empecé a entender de que hay digamos, que yo no puedo comprender exactamente por qué ocurren ciertas cosas.
Well, you know what, I believed he was God on earth because he did do one thing that I can't explain, and that's why I think he's some kind of an astral demon.
The Sai Baba has a strong political influence.
He is India. Sai Baba is the president of India. Sai Baba is the Prime Minister of India. Everyone is paid off. Everyone goes what he says and what he will.
How did he become so powerful?
By cheating, by paying off, by getting the money from the Westerners that donated these billions of dollars every year. All this money has made him so powerful.
So I'm going to be talking about internet rumors about Sai Baba, and also introducing a show where somebody has actually had these experiences. And so now I'd like to talk to Ulrich Zimmerman, because he's actually lived through this, and I want to hear his comments. What do you think about that?
What I think about Sai Baba's response to the multitudinous rumors that are going on now, which are not rumors, which are facts.
You know them to be facts.
Oh yeah, I know them to be facts. And so I would like to comment on his response, which is only one of them. And so I would like to say, to shut down people talking about rumors that are in fact facts, that speaks for itself. I went to India, to Sai Baba, to be liberated, to get an answer to this inner struggle for knowledge, which the humans experience when they come to this plane. And what you basically get is being a puppet. It is covering up the very deed of sexual abuse that is happening. I was 21, so I'm not considered a child, but my heart was open. I was like a child, and very, very, very much so. And so that is one deceit. For me, personally, the bigger deceit lies in the spiritual crime, which is not better than the Catholic Church for centuries, overpowering the masses, and Bible is written in Latin, nobody can read Latin, I mean, just sucking the power away and controlling people, and that is what he does. Because he claims to be an avatar. An avatar is not just a guru. If you really go with Sai Baba, then you can't, it is very difficult, to change your point of focus. Like, to have CDs, CDs are these fabulous powers to overcome our normal physical laws, materialize, sing, levitate, whatever. Is in India not a special thing at all. It is even in the West not a special thing at all. There are people around that can do that. Yeah? And it is very much, also for a Western mind, explainable. It puts you in a situation, to leave him means to lose the world. Okay? That's the ultimate power in it.
Even more than the world, you're losing your eternal salvation.
That's it. You come there with the intent to search for it, and he in that person, very person, is representing that for you. So, for example, to be in that situation of a private interview, and being then even confronted with something that you personally would find distasteful, disgusting, like oral sex, sucking his penis, is when you also when your desire for knowledge is greater, yeah, and you think that this is the only way to get it, and that you trust, that you think this is tantra, yeah, and this is the way to bring up your kundalini, which I'm actually not even sure right now, still, if that is not a way. But the ultimate deceit is that it just empowers you a little bit. You don't get knowledge. You're not able to hold it unless you completely stay focused on him. And that means the more powerful you get, the more powerful he gets. And that's what he's saying. I feed on the devotion of my devotees.
But just a second, you said maybe it is a way with white tantra, whatever. For example, I can see some people can argue, well, you just didn't have enough faith, you didn't trust enough. Do you think perhaps somebody who went through the process, who didn't run to the internet or leave the ashram or decide that this isn't the way, if they had the faith, if they continued on and had more and more and more oral sex or whatever the procedure was, do you think that they would have achieved a state where they would have been able to hold a higher spiritual vision? Did you see in the ashram?
Very good question. I met people when I was there, age-old Sai Baba devotees, there for a very long time, decades. And Sai Baba actually stated that he's married to, I don't know at that point, was a number between 8 and 11, something like that. People he was married to, souls, he felt like these are my spouse or whatever. But the next day, a ring was missing on his finger, and he doesn't wear rings, but that was a speech he gave, and he divorced. You see, yeah, it's possible. It is all up to him. If he divorces you, if he makes a decision, you are not a good amplifier anymore. And that can happen, quickly. His grace is not coming from unconditional love, and that's the whole deceit. That's why you go there. You think it is unconditional love, and it's actually power.
Then people must be living in terrible fear.
They live in terrible denial, and they live in terrible ignorance. I didn't know better. I found my way out of that just being on my own spiritual search and asking for something different, and manifested that in my life. But when you stay in that setting, then you stay utterly dependent and utterly unfree.
You had 5 interviews with Sai Baba, and you know what this caused you in your life and where you finally wound up. You were fortunate in that you came into contact with a teaching that really explained to you, as you said, a teacher really showing you how to bring forth your spiritual power and gain freedom and sovereignty and the ability to create your own life. But I noticed as we were reading in other stories, one man who had 35 interviews as opposed to your 5, what it was like for him over years to have invested such a belief and then come to the end of the line.
I stand for it. I don't feel guilt. I don't even feel anger for Sai Baba. I feel pity. A powerful being that is not able to come into his heart, to come into unconditional love, into a really freeing energy, and basically living up to his own advertisement and statements that he is a liberator. And he is not a liberator, he's an enslaver.
About the stories that he calls rumors, which you feel from your own experience.
No rumor there.
Yeah, that are actually facts. And, in so doing, finding out deeper spiritual truths, and that what is waking up in people is a God within, a greater power than a power that can ever be gotten from the outside.
So much about this. I'm still discovering for myself. This is my life, my path, and I don't feel guilt and I don't feel anger, but I have still to find out who I really am, and I'm on the path. So I only can guess. The best audience, like you said, 1,000 people, a big retreat, and he did that with a lot of anger, and it was connected, the way he called me up, to attitudes that I had to my male agenda, and he didn't know. I made no secrets to the people close to me, like my wife, about that experience with Sai Baba, but I also didn't advertise it. When I felt it was something to share, I would do it, but not many people knew about that.
You weren't ashamed of it, but you didn't hide it either.
No, I didn't hide it, but it's an awkward thing.
But you were surprised.
No, because he referred to that on an earlier event, but he didn't address me personally. What he said on an earlier event was totally out of the context. All of a sudden he said, and that being, that guru, is abusing children sexually. And I was a little bit not that focused, and he says that now at because I kind of knew that I was the only person in the audience that had first-hand experience with that kind of abuse. Said that, I knew, I just took it as an information. So I knew before he called me up that he knew about that, okay? But the way he called me up was in the beginning of an event, and very strongly like, you sucked Sai Baba's penis, stand up. And okay. And he does it a lot in truth teachings, call up.
He's a harsh teacher, huh?
He's a loving teacher, and he's a harsh teacher. It's about, he can build you up in the most loving way, and the next day cut your head off. And then other day, again, build you up. It's all about overcoming your barriers.
But in the process, you're left being less dependent on him and more in tune with
Oh yeah. In the process, I came to understand actually the Sai Baba experience, which before that was a part of my past, and to a certain degree was my past, but the attitudes that led me to create such a path were still very much alive in me. Apply the knowledge, or give you the knowledge, and you have to apply it in very vigorous disciplines, and to apply it in your life. So
it's interesting you use the word he doesn't tolerate being worshipped.
No, not at all. I mean, that's not his agenda. The reason he picked a woman to be present on this plane only as like a channel is to not have a body to be worshipped. You know?
Right, because later on he said, I don't have a penis for you to suck, right?
Yeah, that was later on in that set. Actually, he caught me up on that twice, because in the first session I wouldn't really get it, what he had to tell me, so he broke down on that. And that was very, very strong and harsh experience how he did that. And then half a year later, was a very different energy from his side, and he told me, the tyranny of your search is over. And even at that point I didn't understand it, but then some months later I did understand that all this work with me in about a time frame of maybe a year, 1.5 years, that all was interconnected. And it basically leads to the message of this interview, that the tyranny of my search, even that I did not did not experience it as a tyranny at that point, was a very much self-created situation of tyranny and victimization. I created my path. Females never represented an equal part. I mean, on my life I had a very strong attachment to females, and I had a very strong attachment to spirituality. But I never created a setup and a setting where I would be able to combine that in my life. So when I was with Sai Baba is calling up boys, not girls. There are sexual experiences with girls, but that happens in dream state. And I know people who have that over a longer period of time, and it's strong for them. But in terms of physical intercourse, these are boys.